The story of Jimmy Jong is one of the most extraordinary tales to ever emerge from the hidden corners of the internet. It is a story that begins with loneliness and curiosity and ends with one of the greatest digital discoveries of our time. In an era when the dark web was a mysterious frontier and Bitcoin was still a strange experiment, one quiet computer science student found a flaw that no one else could see, and that single discovery would make him a billionaire. Jimmy Jong grew up in the American South in a quiet Georgia suburb. His parents were Chinese immigrants who had come to the United States with dreams of success and stability. They worked endlessly, his father often late into the night, his mother juggling jobs to keep the family afloat. The house was silent and cold, not because there was no love, but because there was no time. Jimmy learned early to rely on himself. He was bright but awkward. His classmates teased him for being different, for being quiet, for never quite fitting in. He rarely spoke in class and often avoided crowds. He was on the autism spectrum, which made social interaction difficult. He understood machines better than people. When other children played sports, Jimmy stayed indoors, staring into the glow of a computer screen. The internet was his refuge. In online chat rooms and coding forums, he could exist without judgment. He could be smart, without being mocked, curious, without being punished. For Jimmy, the computer was not just a tool, it was a companion. By the time he reached high school, he had already taught himself how to code. He could take apart programs and rebuild them better. He loved the logic, the perfection of it. Unlike people, computers were predictable, they followed rules and always made sense. When Jimmy earned a scholarship to the University of Georgia, it felt like a new beginning. The college town of Athens was full of energy and music. Students laughed on the streets late into the night. Jimmy was shy but determined to fit in. He studied computer science and quickly became known as the quiet genius who could fix any software bug or write clean code in half the time of anyone else. For the first time, he joined parties and gatherings, though he mostly stood in the background watching others with quiet fascination. He wanted connection, but never quite knew how to reach it. Then in 2009, something new appeared on the web. A post by a mysterious figure calling himself Satoshi Nakamoto introduced Bitcoin, a purely digital form of money that required no banks, no government, and no middlemen. It was the kind of idea that fascinated dreamers, libertarians, and tech enthusiasts. But for Jimmy, it was something deeper. It was a system that combined mathematics, cryptography, and freedom, three things he understood perfectly. He downloaded the Bitcoin software and began mining coins on his own laptop. In those early days, it was easy. The network was tiny, and anyone with a decent computer could generate blocks of Bitcoin within hours. Jimmy mined around 5,000 coins over a few months. They were practically worthless at the time, worth less than a cent each. He stored them on his hard drive and forgot about them. 2 years later, when Bitcoin hit $1, he remembered those coins. He searched for the old laptop, but when he turned it on, it refused to start. The drive was dead, and the wallet file containing his private keys was gone forever. Thousands of Bitcoins lost in a few bytes of corrupted data. The loss devastated him. For weeks, he could think of nothing else. He imagined what could have been. The memory haunted him, but it also ignited something, a quiet determination to never miss an opportunity like that again. By 2011, mining had become much harder. The difficulty had increased exponentially, and only those with specialized hardware could compete. Jimmy began looking for other ways to earn Bitcoin. He joined the largest online forum for enthusiasts, Bitcoin Talk, using the username MB300SD, a reference to the vintage Mercedes he dreamed of buying someday. He joined discussions about trading, investing, and online projects. The forum was a mix of visionaries, scammers, and pioneers, all experimenting with this new digital economy. Jimmy was fascinated by the possibilities. He even launched his own small website called BitPony, a kind of online game where people could deposit Bitcoins and watch their balance grow based on random outcomes. Some called it gambling, others called it a Ponzi scheme, but Jimmy treated it as a coding experiment. When the site eventually collapsed, he shrugged it off as a learning experience. Around the same time, a new and darker website began gaining attention. It was called Silk Road, and it existed deep inside the dark web, accessible only through the Tor browser. Its creator, a mysterious man known as Dread Pirate Roberts, had built it as a marketplace of total freedom where people could buy and sell anything without government interference. That freedom included illegal drugs and counterfeit documents. Silk Road used Bitcoin as its only form of payment. To many early users, Silk Road represented rebellion. To Jimmy, it represented curiosity. He had no interest in being a criminal, but he wanted to understand how it worked. He made an account, browsed the listings, and even made a few small purchases, mostly drugs for parties, nothing major. Then one night while cleaning out his account, he made a discovery that would change everything. He clicked to withdraw his remaining Bitcoin balance, but the page froze. He clicked again. Nothing seemed to happen. He clicked several times quickly and finally refreshed the page. A few minutes later, when he checked his wallet, he saw that he had received more coins than he should have. The system had processed each click as a separate withdrawal. His heart raced. He tested it again on a smaller scale, and the same thing happened. He had found a vulnerability, a digital loophole in Silk Road's payment code. It was simple, but devastating. Each rapid click triggered multiple withdrawals from the same account balance. He had discovered a flaw worth a fortune. At first, he hesitated. He thought maybe it was just a temporary glitch that would be fixed soon, but curiosity overpowered caution. He created new accounts on Silk Road and repeated the process dozens of times. Each time the coins flowed in until he had accumulated around 50,000 bitcoins. At that time, they were worth about $600,000, an amount that already seemed unbelievable to a college student. He knew the risk was enormous, but the temptation was stronger. He stopped only when the bug was eventually fixed and quietly disappeared from the site. Jimmy had just pulled off one of the largest thefts in the history of the dark web. Yet no one noticed Silk Road was flooded with transactions, and the missing funds blended into the chaos. He used Bitcoin mixers to hide the trail, scattering the coins across multiple wallets and new addresses. He became a ghost in the blockchain. Under a new online identity called Loaded, he returned to the Bitcoin Talk forums. He posted screenshots of his wallet holding tens of thousands of Bitcoins. In his signature, he wrote Bitcoin multimillionaire. Some believed him, others thought he was bluffing. No one knew they were looking at the man who had drained Silk Road. Jimmy's real life transformed. He bought a house in Athens and finally the Mercedes-Benz he had always wanted. He threw parties and tried to make friends. He showered people with gifts and generosity. He wanted to feel connected to others to belong, but beneath the laughter, he remained distant. Over time, wealth began to change him. He started using cocaine and other drugs with friends, trying to fill a void that money could not reach. One night, he bragged too loudly in a restaurant about having drugs, and an off-duty cop overheard him. The officer arrested him for possession. Though the charge was minor, Jimmy was released, but the incident put him on law enforcement's radar. As the years passed, Bitcoin's value soared. By 2017, his fortune was worth billions. He bought luxury cars, boats, and properties through his company, Jay-Z Capital. He traveled often and lived like someone who had made it through smart investing. He told friends he had simply been an early miner. Nobody questioned him. Then came 2019, and the one mistake that would expose everything. One night he returned home to find his house broken into, a suitcase filled with cash, and some of his Bitcoin hardware wallets was gone. Panic took over. Without thinking, he called 911, reporting the theft. The police came, inspected the house, and took his statement. The robbery itself led nowhere, but that emergency call created a record. A man with no visible income claiming to have lost vast sums of cash was now in an official police report. Months later, agents from the Internal Revenue Service who specialized in digital crimes noticed the case. Two investigators, Trevor Mallon and Sean Magruder, decided to take a closer look. They were not chasing the Silk Road hacker yet. They just wanted to understand how this man in Georgia had so much unexplained wealth. They obtained data from his internet provider and learned that he frequently connected to major cryptocurrency exchanges, including one that required identity verification. In late 2020, Jimmy transferred around $800 worth of Bitcoin to that platform. When the agents traced the origin of those coins on the blockchain, they were stunned. The trail led directly back to Silk Road, the infamous dark web marketplace that had been shut down years earlier. The stolen funds had finally surfaced. They built a detailed case, quietly watching his movements. For months, they analyzed his digital footprints. Then in 2021, the agents along with local police decided to visit Jimmy, posing as officers following up on his old robbery report. Jimmy welcomed them inside his lakeside home at Hidden Harbor Trail. He gave them a tour showing his expensive cars, a full bar, a collection of electronics, and even a flamethrower mounted on the wall. They saw his open laptop showing a cryptocurrency balance worth more than $60 million. A few days later, the agents returned, but this time with a search warrant. The peaceful home filled with armed officers as they combed through every room searching for digital evidence. They found cash gold bars, collectible coins, and in a bathroom closet, a large Cheetos popcorn tin wrapped in towels. Inside was a small motherboard containing the private keys to wallets holding 50,000 bitcoins. The lost Silk Road fortune had been found nearly a decade after it vanished. When the authorities seized the assets, the value of Bitcoin had reached new heights. The coins were worth over $3.3 billion, making it one of the largest cryptocurrency seizures in American history. Jimmy cooperated with investigators and handed over everything. He appeared calm but defeated. The man who had once hidden billions inside a popcorn tin was now left with nothing. He pleaded guilty to wire fraud, and in 2023, a judge sentenced him to 1 year and 1 day in federal prison. It was a remarkably light sentence for the magnitude of his actions, likely because he had fully cooperated. When he was released in 2024, he returned to a very different world. Bitcoin had become a mainstream topic. Governments had developed entire departments to track blockchain activity. The age of anonymity was ending. Jimmy now lives quietly away from the spotlight. He is no longer rich and spends his time working on small technology projects. He avoids interviews and rarely speaks about the past. Those who have met him say he seems peaceful, as if he has accepted what happened. His story raises questions about morality and chance. Was Jimmy a criminal mastermind, or just a lonely young man who pressed the wrong button and realized what it could do? Was he driven by greed or by curiosity? The line between discovery and crime has always been thin, and Jimmy walked it with every click of his mouse. The Silk Road itself became legend, its founder Ross Ulbricht sentenced to life in prison for building the marketplace Jimmy's name, however, remains a strange footnote, a reminder that even in a world built on mathematics, human mistakes and human desires can change everything. What Jimmy uncovered was not just a software flaw, it was a mirror reflecting the fragility of digital systems. It showed how billions of dollars could vanish through a few lines of faulty code, and how a person with enough patience and intelligence could slip through the cracks of the internet's shadows. Yet beyond the numbers, this is also a story of isolation. A child who never found comfort in people turned to computers for friendship. A man who could connect thousands of digital nodes but not his own emotions. The same mind that saw beauty in algorithms could not understand the chaos of human life. But his story remains a lesson for every generation of technologists that even in the vast logic of code, the smallest human error or the simplest double click can change the world.
Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Thanks for watching.